Good evening on this Monday, September 10th. Tropical Storm Leslie is within 12 to 24 hours of making landfall along the coast of Newfoundland. We also have Hurricane Michael situated to the southeast of Leslie, and we also have a new tropical disturbance to the west of the Cape Verde Islands with a 90% chance of development. The National Hurricane Center is forecasting Leslie to make landfall along the coast of Newfoundland within the next 12 to 24 hours with maximum sustained winds of 70 miles per hour, so tropical storm warnings and a hurricane watch are in effect, and although Leslie is beginning to acquire extratropical characteristics, the overall impacts will still be the same. As a matter of fact, this is a look at the tropical storm force wind speed probabilities, and areas near and just to the west of St. John's have a very high chance of receiving, at minimum, tropical storm force winds, and you can also make out the forecast of Hurricane Michael, which is also expected to make a turn toward the northeast, but well away from the Atlantic provinces. The latest regional radar mosaic out of the Atlantic provinces of Canada shows that a large fetch of rainfall is already streaming into the coastal areas, and this is only going to be a precursor to what the weather conditions are likely going to end up being within the next 12 to 24 hours, with a lot more in the way of significant winds as the center begins to approach. The latest forecast track from the Canadian Hurricane Center is in very strong agreement with the forecast we just saw from the National Hurricane Center. The only difference is that the Canadian forecasters are expecting Leslie to at least temporarily regain hurricane force winds shortly before landfall, and this is something that cannot be entirely ruled out, as it will start to acquire more so in the way of extratropical characteristics, and on occasions storms can temporarily regain some intensity when that process is underway. Also, you can see the forecast track of Michael, and Michael is going to be making a very safe turn toward the northeast. The visible satellite imagery shows that Leslie is making that northeast turn toward St. John's, Newfoundland, and the enhanced infrared shows that much of the strongest weather activity is situated to the north and east of the center, so you can expect the worst weather to make landfall well in advance of the center of circulation, and those stronger cloud tops are just a couple hours away from reaching the coastline, so you want to be making your final preparations within the next hour or so, because the conditions will be going downhill quite fast later on this evening. Also, the water vapor just confirms that the long wave trough that we've been forecasting to fully capture the storm has indeed done so, and the track is pretty much edged in stone at this point. If we venture into the northeast Atlantic using water vapor imagery, we can see the coast of Africa and much of western Europe, but out toward the left-hand corner of your screen is also Hurricane Michael, and Michael is now a much smaller storm compared to Leslie, which you can see up here beginning to make its approach toward Newfoundland, and both of these storms are being captured by the trough that we just saw on the prior animation, so Michael is no threat to land. The rest of the Atlantic tropics are fairly quiet, but we do have a tropical disturbance situated to the west of the Cape Verde Islands, and it does have a somewhat well-defined surface circulation, and the enhanced infrared shows that convection is periodically developing near that surface center, so this is likely going to be the next tropical depression or storm of the 2012 season. But thanks to a lot of troughing out across the central and western Atlantic, this system is going to be no threat to land, and it's going to make a gradual bend toward the north and then toward the northeast. This track that takes the storm toward the west-northwest is simply the extrapolated current motion of the storm, but all the models are all in agreement with a gradual turn toward the north, and this system should also pass well to the east of even Bermuda. The latest 10-day forecast from the ECMWF model shows all three of our systems being captured by the long wave troughing out across the central and western Atlantic by day 4 and day 5. This is the tropical disturbance that we're currently monitoring, and this one is also feeling the effects of the troughing, so it's being turned away from the United States, whereas the rest of the Gulf, Caribbean, and deep tropics are forecast to remain very quiet for the next 7 to 10 days. The latest 7-day forecast from the GFS model was showing both of our far north Atlantic systems making the turn toward the northeast. This is the tropical disturbance that we're keeping an eye on. It's developing that system as well, but it's also showing that turn toward the north thanks to a lot of troughing, and the same can be said for a potential second system that the GFS has developing to the west of the Cape Verde Islands. So as long as the troughing remains out across the West Atlantic, anything that comes off the coast of Africa, especially in mid to late September, is likely going to be a recurvature type situation well to the east of any land masses. Finally, we are seeing some tropical disturbances to the south of Mexico, and the models are trying to develop these features, and the GFS has one potentially moving as far north as the Baja Peninsula, so we're going to be paying a lot of attention to the eastern Pacific. As a matter of fact, the latest tropical weather outlook from the Hurricane Center has outlined a tropical disturbance near the Gulf of Tehuantepec as having a 50% chance of development within the next 48 hours. Finally, we're going to leave off with today's video with a look into the Eastern Pacific using the latest visible satellite imagery. And there is quite a lot of disturbed weather immediately to the south of the Mexican Riviera, but nothing is overly organized at this time, so any development is likely going to be very slow to occur, but we are going to be paying much more attention to the Eastern Pacific in the coming outlooks. So thank you for following 28storms.com and the Hurricane Tracker app. We will have more updates throughout the remainder of the week.